Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having us here tonight. It gives us an opportunity to say our thing that we need to say. And my name is Tom Croto. I'm running for re-election to the school board. I've been on the school board 5 years. I'd love to make it 3 more. I'm Concord born and raised. I was a graduate of Walker School, grades K to 6 back in the day, and Concord High School far enough back so this room wasn't the same. And I have been a teacher here in Concord. I've been a school principal. I love the educational process, and I want to continue it on the Concord School Board.
Okay. Ms. Doobie.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Concord Monitor and Concord TV and the high school for hosting this forum for us. It's a great opportunity. My name is Liza Doobie. I'm running for school board in District A, and I'm not running because I see problems with Concord schools, but because I see promise. Concord is in the midst of an economic revitalization, and I'll bring the fresh perspective and skills that the school board needs to match it, from making kindergarten a reality, full-day kindergarten a reality, to maintaining a budget-savvy process and outcome for the middle school. As a mom and an organizational leader, I'm eager to bring a different kind of experience to the school board.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Hi, my name is Danielle Smith. I am also running in District A this year for school board. Last year, I became interested in school board when I started attending meetings with my daughter Leah when we were talking about full-day kindergarten. And through those discussions, I became invested in a lot of the other issues that were happening in the schools. And as a lifelong resident of Concord, a former teacher, and a downtown business owner, I wanted to be involved in a more purposeful and direct way. And I wanted to give a voice to the taxpayers who just haven't had their voices heard yet.
Thank you. Ms. Higgins.
My name is Barbara Higgins. I'm running for a 3rd term on the school board. I'm running in District B. I am a school district graduate. I worked 21 years in the district. I have children in the district. I believe in living a life of service, and serving on the school board is a great way to do it. So I'm looking forward to digging into the many, many challenges that await the next board. So I'm looking forward to another 3 years.
Thank you, Ms. Poinier.
Hi, my name is Liza Poinier. I'm running in wards 5, 6, and 7. My husband and I have lived in Concord since 2001, and our children attend Abbott Downing School in the South End. Here's what I'd bring to the school board: a new point of view, decades of work experience that includes big, complicated projects, and a focus on collaboration and communication, and a desire to prioritize early childhood education for the sake of our kids and the future of this community that we all love. I'll work hard to make sure that every kid in Concord has a chance for a terrific public education, and I thank the Monitor and the high school and Concord TV for putting on this forum.
Great. Mr. Coffin.
Evening. First, I also want to thank the Concord Monitor, the high school, and Concord Television for organizing this event, and also you folks for coming down to keep informed on some important issues. My name is Rusty Coffin, and I am running for a 3-year term out of District C, wards 8, 9, and 10. I did serve on the board from 2014 to 2016, so my level of knowledge is proven, and as the Monitor claimed last year, I am the budget hawk. I truly believe that I know what should be budgeted and what should not. The reason I know this is because experience counts. I also want to be the board member who will be the advocate for those citizens who need help but have no voice on the board. I will have no learning curve, and I have been tested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crush.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's so exciting to be in a community where everyone is so invested and everyone shows up on a Tuesday night here at a high school. My name is Chuck Crush. I'm running for school board for District C. I'm running for 2 key reasons. I'm a healthcare executive with 20 years experience delivering quality healthcare in a cost-effective manner to frail and elderly citizens. In addition to that, I have 2 wonderful stepchildren who have benefited immensely from the Concord School, but in academics, in programming, in full inclusion. I'm really excited to be part of this community. Obviously, I'm not from New Hampshire, I've lived in Concord for 8 years. I've lived in New England since 2002. I'm honored to be part of this community. I'm excited about the growth. I'm excited about the progress, and I would love the opportunity to represent District C Wards 8, 9, and 10 on the school board. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the monitor, Concord High School, and Concord TV, and the program through the CRTV for drama and set building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's get to the first question. I would just remind all the candidates to speak directly into the microphone so our audience can hear you and the TV audience later can hear you. And also, keep an eye on Dana. He's going to let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when you have to stop. You have 2 minutes. First, beginning, we're going to start from left to right and then come back up right to left with question number 2. So, Mr. Croteau, we'll begin with you. We want you to tell us where you stand on 2 key issues for the Concord schools. Will you vote for full-day kindergarten when it comes up again before the school board next year? And does Runlet Middle School need to be renovated or rebuilt? You have 2 minutes. Keep an eye on Dana.
I will. So the first question about full-day kindergarten, I will tell you that I wanted to vote on it last year. That's as honest as I can be. But at the time, there were too many things that were out there that were keeping me personally, from saying we can do it. It was a matter of cost. It was a matter of some other logistics that was happening. And so this year, I fully intend, unless something miraculous and horrible happens, I will vote for full-day kindergarten. I know it's the right thing to do for kids. I know it's the right thing to do in terms of getting them so that they don't have to do as many transitions during a day as some of them do right now. It gives them an opportunity for an enhancement in a kickstart into the curriculum. The social time is just terrific. All of our research has talked about all of those things being very positive. So I will, again, barring any major complication to our budget. As far as Runlet Middle School, our research right now from architects and others has been that it really doesn't have some qualities that we need to keep. And some of those are safety issues, but not drastic safety issues. I don't want to scare people in thinking that we've got an unsafe building. But some of those things are antiquated and need to be updated. The middle school philosophy, the building was built for Runlet junior high school students. And we need a middle school. And a middle school physically configures a whole lot differently. The other thing is being able to have kids go through a long transition time while we're rebuilding is just incredibly difficult. I did it at Winnisquam, and it's not the right thing to do. I think we need to move forward with plans about how are we going to replace it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Doobie.
Thank you. I am a huge proponent of full-day kindergarten, early childhood education in general, including universal pre-K, which is a conversation that hopefully once we resolve full-day kindergarten we'll also be able to begin to have in a serious way. And the reason why is because early childhood education is better for the kids. It provides an equal opportunity for all of the students in our community, not just those whose families can afford it, but also because it's better for the economy. When we have full-day kindergarten, that improves not only our ability to attract young families, to increase our tax base here in Concord and celebrate the amazing downtown that we've been creating over the past several years. It also provides a long-term return on investment to the community. Research has shown that when you invest in early childhood education, for every dollar that you invest, you get a $7 to $10 return on investment, in particular in reduction in crime in the community. So there are a lot of really great reasons to support it and a lot of really great reasons to not hesitate anymore. When it comes to the middle school...
May I ask, so you will vote for it? You support, you will vote for it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yep. When it comes to the middle school, I think that we're really still in the very beginning stages of the process of just figuring out exactly what we need to do with the middle school. I agree with Mr. Croteau that in the end, I think that we'll come to a decision that we do need to build a new middle school for a number of reasons. But what I'm more interested in at the start of this process is making sure that we have a really well thought out process that ensures that the community has the appropriate amount of input, that we do the appropriate amount of studies, like a demographic study, that we make sure that we understand that we're building the school in the right place, that we are also keeping track of the costs that it will take for us to keep the current middle school up and running and safe, so that we're not, and ultimately, double spending to keep one middle school up and running while we build another one.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
I am 100% in support of full-day kindergarten. I think I'm the only candidate and maybe person that could potentially be on the board who has taught full-day kindergarten, so I know that it has huge benefits to kids. I had a little boy come in one of my last years teaching who had never even held a pencil before, and I can't imagine how he could have survived in a half day. I was able to get him lots of extra support that the full day enabled, and I just truly believe that, yes, it's great for our community and it's great to bring in new people, but even more than that, it's the best thing for the kids, and that's what's most important to me. As far as Runlet goes, I also attended the meeting to talk about some of the plans for a new building. I believe that with the information that we have so far, it's in our best interest to start construction on a new building sooner rather than later. I think maybe there's a few years left of life in that building, but if we wait and then add on 4 or 5 years of construction, then we're gonna have some kids in a pretty rough situation. So I am in support of both of those things.
And you would vote yes on full-day kindergarten next year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Higgins?
I'm going to echo a little bit what Tom said. If anyone in the audience or watching at home saw the meeting last year, we went round and round for a long time. That board worked hard in voting no on full-day K. It was a very difficult decision, and we didn't vote no because we didn't want full-day kindergarten. It was rough. And I know I lost some supporters in that vote. So I need to be very clear. Never once was I not in favor of full-day kindergarten. As an educator, it's the right thing to do. And although my wallet and my bank accounts might not show this, I'm very, very responsible with other people's money. And so in voting yes on full-day K, I think one thing my time on the board has shown is that I'm unbelievably careful with how we spend the money once we've decided to spend it. So in putting together a full-day kindergarten, it's not just saying yes, yay, we're doing it, okay. It's also very, very important to put together not only a quality program, but our district, we're struggling also with where is it going to be in each classroom, what classrooms will we use, do we have to move other grades in different places. We have a lot of things we're looking at, and our people in our district have been working very hard to make sure when we unroll our program, our full-day kindergarten, that it will be done well, and the money will have been spent well, so that we're not, unrolling a program that isn't perfect for our 5-year-olds. So I will vote yes.
You would vote yes next year?
And I will work unbelievably hard to make sure it's a good program. In terms of Runlet, I personally haven't looked over the information enough to say build a new school or, I wrote that in my answers in the newspaper. I don't feel educated enough in what I've looked at to say one or the other, so I don't want to be disingenuous to the public right now. I agree that that building is not only in rough shape, but a very antiquated layout for middle schoolers, and we need to make a decision quickly. But again, it needs to be fiscally responsible. We can't just do it because it seems the right thing to do.
Thank you.
We need to do it right.
Thank you. Ms. Ponier?
Yes, I would vote in favor of full-day kindergarten. I think it's the best investment we can make in our community, and it pays dividends throughout a child's life and also for the society in all of the things that we don't have to pay for when our kids don't get in trouble because they had a great start. It's a matter of equality of opportunity for all of our young kids. I was involved with the middle school sessions last spring as a community member and parent of 2, and the whole process was pretty interesting, and even though we've done that whole visioning process, I believe that there's still quite a lot of visioning to do and a lot of talking and collaborating and planning and looking at blueprints and trying to decide what do we really need. If we do rebuild the middle school, and based again on the workshops and what the architects said, we probably do need to build one sooner rather than later. I think we should do it with an eye to what do middle school students need. That's number one. And then also sustainability. You know, how can we build the building so that it won't drown us in operating costs every year? What are the architectural considerations that are going to make it great for learning and great for teaching? And there are lots of other things to talk about, but I think it's time, and we should get both these things done.
Thank you. Mr. Coughlin?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that this is not just a one-issue campaign like it was last year, which was on full-day kindergarten. Last year, we were saddled with this steam heat due to Concord Steam closing, and we had to turn 3 schools, including this school, into gas heat. Very, very, very expensive. And at the same time, full-day kindergarten, they were asking us to support it financially. Well, I came out as not supporting it financially. I didn't think, and if we did, our taxes would spike. So what I decided, right now, I was portrayed as a person who was against full-day kindergarten, period, regardless of funding or anything, and that's too bad because I wasn't against full-day kindergarten. I am for full-day kindergarten, but what I am against is the funding if it's going to make everyone's taxes spike. I also am for Runlet Middle School, but what I believe should happen there is they should be both dealt with in separate budgets. One year and one the other year, very much like we're doing with full-day kindergarten. The paying for both of these projects in one budget is virtually impossible. The tax rate will spike our taxes and the public will get hurt financially. We can't do that. So we're going to need to do this in 2 separate budgets, but I do believe we need both.
To be clear then, next year, would you vote to fund full-day kindergarten?
Pardon?
To be clear, next year, are you saying you're unsure about whether you would vote yes for public kindergarten, a full-day kindergarten rather, or not?
Well, I will, depending upon the funding.
Mm-hmm.
When is it go? You know, what's happened, as Tom said, you can't predict these things. We couldn't predict. Well, we almost did.
All right.
That Concord Steam was going to close.
Sure.
So we knew that was down the pike.
Thank you for that. Mr. Crush?
There you go.
Well, thank you. Two really good questions to answer in 2 minutes, so I'll try to be brief, which is not my strong suit. So, first of all, yes, full-day kindergarten, I support it. So the answer is yes, I will vote for it next year, first and foremost. With that said, I agree. We have to make sure we have the infrastructure in place. I've been talking to school principals over the last couple months. Had a great meeting over at Millbrook a couple of days ago with the principal about infrastructure and full-day kindergarten and how to implement that, both in an operational way and an educational way. I think no one here is debating in my mind, the benefits of full-day kindergarten for the kids, but there's also going to be some secondary gain with businesses being attracted here. If I'm a business leader, I'm a business owner, I'm looking to locate a business here. One of the things I'm going to look at for any community is the quality of the education. Full-day kindergarten is going to be a metric I'd look at for my employees to make sure that that is in place for their kids to make it an attractive workplace. So I think there's going to be some gain with full-day kindergarten. And first and foremost, it's about the kids, but I think we're going to have some other gain. So yes, I would vote for that. On to Runlet. So I had the opportunity with several other people here at the table to be on the visioning committee last year, which was fascinating as a community member. Look, we've got to do something with Runlet. It's obvious, it's a question. It's 60 years old. It is not, I got to be quick. It is not as functional as it could be. I met with the principal there this morning. With that said, We're in the infancy of gathering information. We need to do demographic studies. We need to predict enrollment. We need to make sure that we are good stewards of the information. But one of the things, if elected to school board, is I assure you, I would be a good steward of tax dollars. I get it. I get my tax bill too. We all live in a budget. So with that said, I would be a good steward of tax dollars. But yes, I support full-day kindergarten, and yes, I support doing things for Runlet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. We're gonna stay on topic, and we're gonna take one submitted question. Remembering that Runlet Middle School's bond for construction will be quickly upon the district, and that the cost of full-day kindergarten, if passed, will be at least $1 million every year, where would you look in the budget to cut costs or add additional revenue to the district to soften the blow for all Concord's taxpayers? And we'll start on the other end of the table with Mr. Crush.
Well, thank you. That's a good question. So I spend a lot of time looking at budgets. I'm not, and nor profess to be at this point, an expert at the school budget. What I assure you is that we have to look for savings in many areas. We can't burden the taxpayer to the point it is not beneficial, not good for them to live here in Concord. With that said, there are things, it's about the people. I think perhaps it was Mayor Booley or one of the candidates earlier who said that, it's about people, and our people are our biggest resource. We have to make sure that we attract and retain good people. With that said, we have to look for cutting costs. We have to look at health insurance. We have to look at benefits. We have to look at cost sharing, and that's the reality of the current economic model we live in, both in the public and private sector.
Thank you. Mr. Coffin.
One more time. Question, please. No, I know it. Okay, I think it is. I know it. I get it.
Essentially paying for Runlet Middle School and full-day kindergarten. And
Well, we do need to, a couple of things with Runlet Middle School. My guess is when that comes up, we will do, as Barbara and Tanya says, that we're going to have to really do it slowly. And once we decide to go with it, we are going to need to make some serious cuts. Now, I remember being on the board when Christine Rath was our superintendent, and we did a little exercise of cutting $1 million out of the budget, and it is a huge ripple effect. We did cause a lot of pain. We would have caused a lot of pain, and those citizens let us know about it. So we changed it. We didn't make those cuts. But it's not going to be an easy decision. I think I can help with that decision because I know what's good and what's not so good on that. So thank you.
okay, Ms. Ponier.
You probably all know that Concord is property poor. We are below average in terms of taxable property per pupil. We're below Manchester, I think. No, not quite right, but we're definitely below average, sorry. So when it comes to building the school budget and knowing that such a big chunk of the school budget is personnel, as Chuck said, the decisions get very, very tough. So what I think we need to focus on is the fact that, yellow card already? Okay, let me back up. Listen, I worked for In-Town Concord for 4 years, before, during, and after the Main Street project. I know what big projects are about. I understand how big budgets work. And I don't know the school district budget yet, but I want to dig into it and try and find some answers. Kindergarten should not be negotiable. We need to get it done. Everybody here said, yeah, we want to get it done. One person said, well, only if we can afford it. That doesn't mean you're in favor of it if you're saying, I'm not going to pay for it. I think we need to pay for it, and I think we need to figure out how. And sorry for the ramble. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Higgins.
I will refer back to the exercise Rusty referred to when we sat as a board and cut $1 million dollars from the budget as an exercise. That would probably be the first thing that we would do as a budget, as a school board. We would sit and look at that budget and look at areas that we have profound spending and look at ways to streamline that spending, be more efficient with it. Where are we being excessive in our spending, which is nowhere. We're dealing with people, not widgets, so it's difficult sometimes to make these cuts. But any budget can be looked at and scrutinized and tightened, and I can assure you that this is what we have done several times in the past. There are several areas in our board that are huge. Our personnel is huge, our special ed spending is huge, our insurance costs are huge. These are 3 areas that are large, that are big in our budget, and these are areas that would get looked at and studied and streamlined if possible. As far as revenue, we can always look to other communities that would consider perhaps sending their students to Concord. We can get creative, we can think outside the box. We have a tremendous board.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
Sure. As far as easing the blow to the taxpayers, I kind of have to echo Barb's things here, that we really do have to look at everything line by line. And as someone that's coming fresh to this process, I really would want to study everything line by line. I think there's a lot of moving parts. I think we have contract negotiations with teachers. We have potentially money for Keno coming. And I'm very thankful that Mr. Dunn will be there to help sort of guide that process along the way.
Thank you, Ms. Doobie.
Thank you. I think that you're in this long line of candidates. You're likely to hear a number of things repeated over and over again. So I'll try not to burden some of these issues. But I will say that as a person who's had experience in an executive leadership position, both in the nonprofit and corporate world, I've certainly looked at a number of budgets that have had to be cut in really dramatic ways. And very rarely do you just select a line item and strike that from the budget. So clearly there would need to be a lot of squeezing and penny pinching as we look at the budget, every time you look at the budget, whether there's a middle school coming up or not. But I also think that it's important to go back to the reality of the process of determining what is going to be happening with Runlet Middle School and making sure that we're a board that brings the community along with us as we're creating the solution for Runlet, so that the community can understand where there are going to be pain points, where they're going to need to have, to give a little bit more, where we can take things, so that it's a collaborative process and not something that we're just making a decision on whole cloth.
Thank you, Mr. Croto.
Well, it's a great question, because I was going to yield some of my time before to say this. We just recently, at the board level, at one of our recent meetings, told our administration, you can continue to move forward in exploration, but we don't want a 1-2 punch to this community right now. We know that we want full day K. We can't, on the heels of that, turn around and say, oh, by the way, we're going to spend another $70+ million on a middle school in the probably foreseeable future. It's going to come. More than likely, something's going to happen, but it's not going to be real quickly. The other thing, I think, we've got an excellent business administrator. We asked him at the end of last year, knowing that we're going to be looking at full day K, come to us with our budget this year, knowing that we're going to be looking to spend that $1 million or $1.2 million for full day K. It's not easy to take things out of a budget. We know that. We've heard that already. We've tried to do it. You can hold the line, but there's always going to be increases for teacher salaries, increases for all of your salaries. There's going to be a roof that needs fixing, and it has to be fixed.
Thank you. That leads nicely to the next question. Let me remind everybody we're going to have 1 minute. We're sorry it's short. We've got a lot of people. Keep your eye on Dana. In terms of bringing the community in and contract negotiation decisions, not the negotiation part, but do you think at some point there should be a public hearing and discussion of proposed terms for teacher contracts, administrative contracts, whatever money is being spent on salaries in the school district in Concord? We'll begin with you, Mr. Croteau.
Well, thanks. I answered that in the Concord Monitor, and the answer is no. And I think that there's a great number of opportunities for people to become involved in the budget process. We go through a lot of meetings for budget. There's ways for them to get there to those meetings and voice their opinions. We actually will have people come to any meeting, and if they want public opinion after that, we'll give them an opportunity. So there's chances along the way for people to come and voice their opinions. Once we get to the point of our final negotiated contracts, those are approved in public by the board. So there's an opportunity there to voice opinions. Would it change anything? That remains to be seen.
That's the question.
That is the question.
Ms. Dubey?
Sure.
What do you say?
So, you know, I agree with Mr. Croteau for the most part. You know, there's a way of doing contract negotiations. There's some legal restrictions that go on during the negotiation process, and then there are pieces that are put into place as a public school board where before the public vote takes place on the contracts, there is an opportunity, although that varies depending on the outcome of the length and duration of those budget negotiations, for people to be able to at least review those contracts before that public vote. That's my understanding. I would say that I think this speaks to a larger issue about transparency with the school board, and a part of that is, you know, thinking about ways that we can be open to what the community might suggest from us, and also making sure that we have lines of communication that are open above and beyond just the public announcements of the hearings and the public meetings themselves. So, you know, as a communications professional, one of the things that I think that I would bring to the board is some new ways of looking at how we can make sure that we're communicating with the community throughout all of the decisions that we make, not just the budget process.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
I'm probably not going to bring a much very unique perspective here, because I agree with both Mr. Croteau and Ms. Dubey. I do believe that communication is key to really letting the public understand what's happening in the schools, and for the schools to understand the problems of the average taxpayer. So I do believe that anytime we have a major decision, such as contract negotiations, that it is very important to have public hearings and allow the public a chance to speak. But as far as negotiations, I agree that that's something that is done in private.
Thank you. Ms. Higgins?
Yeah. I'm also going to agree. Having been on both sides of this, I taught in this district for 21 years and participated as a teacher with the union, and then being on the school board and being on the other side of the tables, literally on the other side of the table, to see both perspectives. And, you know, negotiations can become very personal and very emotional, and that's with the small number of people that participate in the actual negotiation. That piece of it needs to have a small number of people taking the input of their respective unions and you know, boards, and et cetera. And then the outcome of those meetings then is voted on and made public at that point. I think it's just important for the public to trust that the people doing that work are doing it based on, you know, why they were elected to do these things. You know, we take that very seriously as a board. And the other point I will make is, although our board meetings are not well attended, when people come to our board and make suggestions, we take them. 5 people came and brought up full-day kindergarten, and it's all we've talked about since those 5 ladies came to our meeting. So, you know, I think we're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Bonnier?
For all the reasons just explained, I think that the way things work right now is totally appropriate. I will say, though, that in the interest of communicating better with the community and making sure that people know what's going on in the school board, that the school board needs to make more of an effort to open communication channels with the people who are in the schools and paying the way for our school children. So that would be a main goal for me, would be to facilitate that, communicating outward, and then also taking comment back from the community, making sure everybody knows, you know, what is on the agenda this week, what's going on, what are some decisions that were made that are important for people to know. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Coffrin?
No. It's law. They're not allowed, we're not allowed to have open meetings when it comes to large contracts.
Well, aside from negotiations, we understand, but how about public hearings on contract proposals, or
I don't think we need them
why not?
because of the law.
Okay.
We do not, it says it's RSA 91-A:2, and it states exactly that. So I'm sticking with the law.
Mr. Crush?
Thank you. I agree. No, it should not be public hearings. As someone who's been involved in union negotiations, managed in union and non-union environments, and as someone who's been involved in union negotiations that are collaborative and union negotiations that are very contentious, I don't feel like it should be the process of holding public hearings. I'm going to echo a little bit of what I said in the monitor. It goes against the process of two parties in good faith who negotiate on common ground. The school board is elected. They're representative. You elect representatives to reflect the values of the community. I think we need to allow the negotiation process to take place and have people agree on common ground. And I think from an operational standpoint, it would certainly slow the process down. So my answer is unequivocally no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Crush. The school system wants to move toward total conversion to competency-based grading. Where do you stand on that system of measuring school performance?
Yeah, so this morning, again, I was at the middle school and had this conversation with the principal. In addition to that, I've got 2 children in the school system. Look, when I grew up, you know, it was A, B, C, D, and F, and that was it, you know, and that's where my mind is as a parent. Kind of old school, you know, a 98's a 98, a 72's a 72, and that's what it is. However, I think as we grow and evolve as a society, as an educational system, we have to do things differently. This morning, boy, time goes quick. This morning, when I was talking to the principal of the middle school, one of the things we talked about is, you know, a 3 really means a lot to a kid who's mastered something in social studies. He or she has mastered those core competencies, which is really the goal of education. We have to kind of shift our thinking as a parent. You know, I'm learning to shift my thinking. They use kind of a hybrid system of competency-based grading here at Concord High. And so that's kind of where I stand on that. I mean, certainly it's a lot more to learn, but I think it's the right direction of competency-based education because it's all about learning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coffrin.
Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sitting a little low in this chair, so I can't hear.
I'll switch.
Sure.
What's that?
The school system wants to move toward total conversion to competency-based grading. Where do you stand on that system of measuring school performance?
Competency education. Tell you a little story first.
You only have
When
2
I was
minutes.
getting ready to retire, that's when it first came up. And, you know, believe it or not, I didn't want anything to do with it. And I just kept asking my department head and the principal, do I have to go to these meetings? I'm retiring. They just said no. So I let it go. And then when I was on the school board and I started to see how good this stuff was, I got intrigued. And I think it's important. The kids are, the first things the kids said, oh, we don't have to do homework. No, that's not true. You do have to do homework. And competency education does, as Chuck just said, there are core things that the kids have to know, the students have to know before they move on. That's K through 12. And I truly believe that, and even in testing, that should be tested as well. Competency education is like this. If you're a college professor and you have a group of, I'm just listening, you have a group of 15 kids in front of you, and you know you're teaching college geometry, okay? And the kids come to you with certain prerequisites, and if you know that what they're supposed to know, and every one of them are sitting in front of you, they've graduated with competency education, then there should be no problems.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ponier.
Oops, you're on deck.
The competency standards are rooted in science. There's a whole lot of research to show that they are the way to go, and I think it's excellent that Concord is heading in this direction, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but I would say I'm eager to learn, and I've heard from the principals that it's working out very well already, and so if it's proven to get results for our kids and they're really demonstrating mastery of topics before they move on to the next, I think that's great.
Thank you. Ms. Higgins.
As a special educator since 1987, and I currently work in a private special ed day school, for children that don't learn in traditional ways, it's always about competency-based education. If you can't grade a student in a traditional manner because they perhaps can't speak or suffer from autism, but they can show you what they've learned in a different way, they're showing you competency and a skill. So I feel that regular education is finally catching up to what special educators have known all along, that if you can show competency in a skill or a subject, then you shouldn't have to, you can move on to the next thing. So when I left the district here in 2010, we were just starting to look at our courses and what did we want students to show competency in our classes. So in my mind, it directs teachers to really look at what they're teaching. What is it we want our children to show us that they know before they move on to the next skill? So it's terrific. The struggle for some is how do we translate that into what we already know? So that becomes our struggle, not the student struggle. So it's better for everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
I, too, would agree that competency-based grading is effective. When I was teaching kindergarten, which is quite a different level of competency, you see kids that come to you with a complete array of backgrounds, and I think of my own son who learns in sort of a non-traditional way, that when he goes to take a test, you know, sometimes he gets distracted and we'll get it sent home that say, please finish this with mom. But if he would just sit and talk to us, we know that he knows what he's supposed to know. There's a lot of no's. And as a teacher, when you have competency-based grading, if you're teaching in sort of a transient population, when a new student comes to you, you know what they know, again. So when it's time to grade a new student, then you have this information already in front of you, whether it's pen and paper or a new form of test taking.
Thank you, Ms. Doobie.
So competency-based education is something that I am a huge believer in. Before my family moved to Concord, we were living in Kittery, Maine, and they were undergoing a gigantic transformation in their high school that was founded in competency-based education, and it was hard to leave that knowing that we had students who weren't going to be able to take part in that grand experiment. So it was really exciting to understand that Concord is moving in that direction. You know, to take Barb's point a little bit further, there's a lot of equality and equal opportunity that comes through competency-based education, not only for students who have special needs, but also for students who are gifted. It really provides the opportunity for students across that spectrum of learning to be able to prove that they are learning along the way, and it gives kids the chance to be able to move at their own pace. You know, I think that there are some fears around competency-based education, in particular those around colleges and universities not understanding what these mysterious grades mean, and I think that that's been proven to be an unfounded fear, in particular from our own university system here in New Hampshire. So I think that that really helps pave the way to make competency-based education something that really sticks in our community.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Croto.
Well, I've been in education a very long time, and competency-based education is not really as new as we might think. I mean, don't we all want kids to demonstrate that they have competency in everything that we ask them to do? Some of the tricks about competency-based education, as far as I'm concerned, involve making sure they're not moving targets. In other words, are we doing in Concord what kids in the rest of the state and the rest of the nation are doing, so that when our kids graduate from Concord High School, they are competitive. They get into college and they're competitive with their classmates. So it's not a moving target. The other trouble is getting every teacher on the same page. It's tough for teachers to develop competencies and have them tried and true and still be able to teach them to every student that they have. So what do you do when some of your kids don't do that and the pack moves on? That has been a question that's been around since education first began. The other and final problem is we need to educate parents about competency-based. Once they understand it, once we understand it better and they understand it, then I think it'll all move a lot easier.
Very good, thank you. I'm sorry we don't have time for more questions. You want to give each of the candidates 1 minute for a closing statement? And again, thanks for all the information that you've provided us. Mr. Croteau, you go first.
Okay, terrific. I want to be reelected to the Concord School Board because I enjoy it tremendously. And because I enjoy it, I have a lot of passion about it. I have not been scared about being on subcommittees. I'm formally appointed to 3, I believe, but I attend virtually every subcommittee. I want to be involved. I want to know what's going on. I'm involved in the community. The mayor asked a few years ago if I would be involved in the childhood study for hunger in the city, and I gladly accepted that and worked with folks on that committee. We have produced a document that will help for folks who may find themselves in a position of needing food. I've been a long time member of the New Hampshire Partners in Education. I've been their chairperson for the last, I think, 12 or 13 years. I've got a great record. Along with my board members, I approve hiring more teachers to keep classes smaller. I have approved new and innovative curriculum, our help desk at the high school, and I've always supported keeping, retaining, getting good administrators, good teachers. I know that the future holds fiscal autonomy. I want to protect that. I want to make sure that we keep that on this board, and I will work every day to see that we do that.
Thank you. Ms. Doobie?
Thank you. As a mom of 2 boys just entering school, I bring the perspective of today's parents. And as the Vice President of Communications for a national affordable housing organization and former Marketing Communications Director for Stonyfield, I also bring the perspective of a corporate and nonprofit leader with experience in strategy, complex budgeting, and productive collaboration. I believe in the importance of early childhood education, including full-day kindergarten for every child, real-world career readiness for every student, whether or not they're college bound, and making our schools places where students learn to be compassionate, informed decision makers. Schools are more than just places to learn math and history. They're where our community is formed, and as we move forward with new programs like PACE and continue to support others like CRTC, we need leadership that will engage the community, from parents to business owners to retirees, to share in that progress. I have the passion and the skills to help do just that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
So as I mentioned in the beginning, last year my 5-year-old daughter and I started attending school board meetings hoping that she would be able to go to kindergarten full day. Didn't happen, but we're hoping for other kids. Time and time again, I heard the school board members thank the young moms for coming to support full day kindergarten. And don't get me wrong, I love my kids and I am deeply invested in their education, but I am so much more than a young mom, and I am running for so many more kids than my own too. I deeply respect the experience of the incumbents that are currently serving, but fresh eyes and a new voice should not be overlooked, especially when we are facing so many difficult choices moving forward in our schools. I come to this race with a master's in education, 8 years of classroom experience, as I mentioned, in full-day kindergarten, 34 years of Concord residency, 5 years of business ownership, and yes, 8 years of motherhood. But after knocking on doors and having some rich conversations with my neighbors, I realized that I also come to this race representing the experience of an unheard voting community. And on November 7th, that's the experience vote that I hope the people of Concord will be making.
Thank you. Ms. Higgins?
So first I want to say that it's really wonderful to have so many people running. The first year I ran for school board, I was one of 2 that ran for 2 seats. And I think that's unhealthy for a community. I think it's important for you all to have a choice, and there are a lot of great folks sitting here, me included. I'm also wicked humble, so I bring humility to the board. So I think, I don't have anything written. I didn't come all prepared with this big lists of why you should vote for me. I've worked hard in my 6 years. I got a little sidetracked with the death of my daughter. That would sidetrack anyone, I think. But I really enjoy serving on the board, and I really just come as Barb Higgins. I am who I am, and the reason people should vote for Barb Higgins is because I'm the person that they feel I would represent them. So when people go and vote, they should look at the ballot and say, I think Barb Higgins is the one that would most represent me. I think she's the one that understands me. I think she's the one that would make a choice that would resonate with me. I think she's the one that would listen to my needs. I feel that I represent children and elderly people and everyone in between. And I do it without pretense or, political connection or any of those things. I'm just Barb, and I work real hard to make sure that all the everyone else's get represented in the board. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ponier?
Good. Thanks. I'm a proud working mom from the South End. My kids are really enjoying their experience in Concord Public Schools, and I think that I would bring a new point of view to the school board. I have a really driving desire to bring early childhood ed to the forefront and prioritize that for the sake of the kids and the community. A great school system is really critical to attracting new families and businesses to the community, and that expands the tax base, which is what the Mayor Forum talked all about. And I think that, in all of this conversation about individual issues, we've kind of lost sight of the fact that this is a great community to live in, and it's a great school system. So how do we keep it great, keep maintaining it, and pushing it higher and better, because that's what makes people want to be here, and that's what grows our base of resources so that we can keep getting better all the time. I want to thank the current members of the school board. I think they do a really hard job, and they work really hard to make it happen. And so thanks for having me here, and don't forget to vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coffrin?
Okay. First, I want to thank the Concord Monitor for this evening's forum, but I truly believe that experience counts when being elected to the school board, and it is all about taxes. Having already served 3 years on the board, I've been through budget negotiations, converting schools from steam to gas heat, formulating plans for Runlet Middle School, and hiring new administrations. There are several important issues currently facing the district, and I have been part of the committees that studied and worked on those solutions, such as how to move forward with Runlet Middle School, the possibility of full-day kindergarten, and keeping an eye on the effect our decisions have on our local taxes. I also want this campaign to be more than just one issue campaign. Last year, full-day kindergarten took center stage. While this was and is an important issue, I knew there were more pressing issues facing the board, such as converting several schools from steam heat to gas as Concord Steam was closing. This priority for the board, and it was large ticket item, the cost of which made full-day kindergarten a wish and not a reality. I was portrayed as a candidate who did not care about full-day kindergarten, which was far from the truth. I did not believe it should have been funded due to the expensive items we already needed to address. Every year, the board faces tough decisions regarding large items that impact the cost of the local taxpayers. There are many other expensive items each and every year during the budget season to consider. I do believe I have the experience to help decide what should be budgeted and what should not.
Thank you, Mr. Coffrin. You're out of time. Mr. Crush, you're next.
Well, thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity for the night tonight. I'm excited about the opportunity to be part and to serve on the Concord School Board. I'm a very proud father of my two stepchildren, Josh and Allie, who have benefited immensely from this school system. I've operated nursing homes and healthcare facilities. I've provided care for elderly on $150 a day. That's about the cost of a hotel room. But in that $150, I provided food, nursing care, programming. So I get budgets. I get making hard decisions. You know, I'll end with a story. 2 days ago, I was at Millbrook, and I met with the principal, and I walked out. And, I've learned a lot in this whole process. Everybody has an opinion. You should do this, you should do that, you should do this, which is great. Everybody's well-intended, but it's a lot of noise. But I stood there for a minute and I saw the developmental preschool playing on the playground there at Millbrook School. And I saw those kids, I saw those teachers, I saw a little boy with his aide, and I saw the interaction, and I saw those kids at the infancy of their academic career. And I want to make sure we have a school system that's good for them, that's inclusive of students of New Americans, LGBTQ students, as well as students with disabilities. And that's what I'll do for you if you'll let me on November 7th. And thank you for the opportunity.
Great. I want to thank all the candidates. I appreciate the time, and see you in a little bit. Thank you.